Jai Gurudev, and thank you for joining us today. Today, again, we have with us an art filming expert and an officer of the Vedic Sansan. We are at the Sri Gaushala in the Art of Living International Center in Bengaluru. So, today we'll be discussing about the Gaushala. So, let's begin with a beautiful scene described in the Bhagavad Puran. 1 year after Lord Krishna's birth, an auspicious moment was declared. Can you elaborate on what this moment signified? Yes, Jai Gurudev, according to our scriptures, Gargacharya declared that 1 year from that day would be an auspicious time for Krishna to begin Gau Seva, the sacred service of the cows. This marked the start of Krishna's new phase of divine play, where he officially stepped into the role of Gopala, the protector of cows. That day falling on the 8th of Kartik month came to be known as Gopashtami, a festival celebrated even today with the immense reverence, and it's much more than a historical moment. Gurudev often reminds us how such stories are not just for celebration but for inner contemplation. Gopashtami symbolizes a spiritual rite of passage not just for Krishna but for each one of us. When Krishna, beautifully adorned in pitambar, flute in his hand and a small stick, goes to the forest to tend cows, it represents our own readiness to take responsibility for our senses and direct them towards dharmic living. That's profound. The Bhagavad Puran uses the word cow with multiple meanings. Now, could you share more about these? Absolutely, the word cow is layered with meanings. Literally, it refers to a cow, but scripturally, it also stands for jnana or knowledge, kaman or movement or journey, prapti or attainment, moksha or liberation, and even indriya or senses. So, Gaucharan Leela in Krishna's herding of cows is not just about animal care, it's a symbolic metaphor. It teaches that our senses, like cows, are meant to be guided, nurtured, and brought into the service of something higher. I would like to add here that Gurudev explains that this as a journey of self-mastery. Just as Krishna lovingly guides the cows, we must guide our senses, not suppress them, but align them with dharma. That way our experiences, pleasures, and desires don't overpower us. Instead, they become sacred instruments in our path to realization. That's where Gopashtami becomes more than just a festival, isn't it? Exactly, on a subtle level, Gopashtami is a reminder to align bhoga or enjoyment and yoga or discipline. Krishna taking cows to the forest shows how God himself engages with the world, but with centeredness, love, and responsibility. And this is why Vedic traditions emphasizes Sanyam sadhana of level 1 and level 2 over indulgence. When our mind and senses are immersed in the divine, especially through satsang, seva, and sadhana, we naturally elevate. This is the very essence of the four purusharthas of dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Now, could you explain how Krishna's Leela connects with the human journey towards these purusharthas? Yes, Krishna's every act is a Leela, yet it is deeply symbolic. When he lovingly takes the cows out for grazing, it shows how the divine interacts with creation. The cows represent not just animals but our faculties and desires. Unless these are taken care of with awareness, they may wander. When offered at the feet of the divine with Shraddha or faith and bhakti or devotion, we attain moksha, the highest goal of life. Gurudev beautifully puts this when your desires and senses are offered in the fire of awareness, they become sacred. This is where Sudarshan Kriya and meditation help. They bring Chitta Shuddhi or purification of consciousness, and just like Krishna's flute creates harmony, a mind too starts playing the melody of peace. Lastly, how should modern seekers relate to Gopashtami today? Celebrate the cows, yes, but also recognize the deeper call. Respect your senses, treat them as divine gifts, and engage them in service and contemplation. Visit a Gaushala, perform a Gau Puja, and meditate on Krishna's Leela. And understand that through discipline and surrender, you walk the same forest path as Gopala and live with the awareness that life itself is a divine Leela. Just like Krishna adorned with ornaments, you too are adorned with talents, emotions, and intellect. Use them wisely. Let Seva Sadhana Satsang and Swadhyay be your cowherd sticks. Let the mind graze only where there is purity. That is true Gaucharan. Thank you both for this beautiful exposition. May the spirit of Gopashtami awaken divine responsibility and joyous devotion in all our hearts. Jai Gopala, Jai Govinda. Jayadev, so let's now explore the ritualistic and symbolic dimensions of Gopashtami in Vedic Dhamma Sansthan and Art of Living Gaushalas. How is this festival celebrated? Gopashtami is a sacred day of gratitude towards Gaumata who sustains the physical, mental, and spiritual health. At Sri Gaushala in the Art of Living International Center, we begin the day with Gau Puja, washing the cows' feet, adorning them with sandalwood paste or chandan, flower garlands, colorful cloth, and feeding them special bhoga. Vedic chants like Gavam Anaha Pavitrena from Rig Veda are recited, sanctifying the entire environment. But this is not mere ritual. When we decorate and worship cows, we are acknowledging Dharma in action, offering reverence to the very embodiment of the earth's abundance and nurturing spirit. And Gurudev emphasizes that just as we feed cows and care for them on Gopastami, we must also take responsibility to nurture and govern our own mind and senses. Cows are seen as symbols of innocence and service. When our senses are aligned with selfless purpose, they too serve like divine cows, gazing under Krishna's guidance. That's why many devotees, including children, participate in Gau Seva on this day, cleaning their sheds, feeding jaggery rice to cows, and offering gratitude. The spiritual joy it brings is unmatched. The concept of Indriya Nigraha, disciplining the senses, came up earlier. Could you speak more on how this Leela teaches it practically? Yes, in Vedic philosophy, the mind or manas is the driver, and the senses or indriyas are the horses. If the reins or intellect are weak, the chariot crashes. But when Krishna, the divine within, holds the reins, the senses follow dharma naturally. In Gaucharana Leela, Krishna doesn't force the cows, he gently leads them, watches over them, and protects them. Similarly, we need to treat our senses with awareness, not suppression or indulgence, but divine direction. That's the path of yoga. Gurudev often says spirituality is not denial, it is deep fulfillment. Brahmacharya is not about running away from pleasure, but understanding its nature and directing it towards bliss. When your energy moves inward, you taste the joy Krishna himself tasted in the forest of Vrindavan. And what about children and youth? How can they relate to this Leela? That's a wonderful question for young minds. Gopashtami becomes a gateway to love Krishna, respect animals, and understand the balance between joy and responsibility. That's why we organize storytelling sessions, Krishna dress up activities, cow painting, and bhajan chanting for children in gurukuls and yes plus youth groups. Through this, children don't just learn mythology, they absorb values of compassion, patience, reverence for nature, and joy in service. They see Krishna not as a distant god but as a friend who teaches through his playful acts. And importantly, they learn the integration of dharma and karma, just as Krishna never neglected his daily duties, even as God incarnate. Our youth too should see everyday responsibilities not as burdens but as sacred offerings. When Krishna took the cows out, he taught us that even the smallest act, when done with love, becomes divine. Lastly, how do art of living practices like Sudarshan Kriya, Seva, and Satsang help us internalize this message of Gopashtami? Yes, Sudarshan Kriya helps you bring prana or life force to all parts of your being. Like Krishna bringing cows to green pastures, it clears the clutter of the mind so that the inner flute of Krishna can be heard. Seva brings humility. When you serve cows, the environment, or people selflessly, your ego melts. And Satsang keeps your inner journey joyful, just like the Gwalas singing and dancing with Krishna. These practices woven together cultivate a life of awareness, joy, and purpose, which is what Gauchar and Leela ultimately signifies. I would say each of us must become a Gwala of our own consciousness, guarding it, guiding it, and offering it daily to the Lord. This is Gopashtami in essence, and that is the real Leela, to live in the world yet remain centered in the heart of Krishna. What a divine insight, from Krishna's flute to the forest path of Dharma, from cow care to mind care. Gopashtami offers layers of realization for every seeker. We thank our distinguished guests from the Art of Living in Vedic Dharma Sansthan for this soul-stirring conversation. May the essence of Gopala's Leela awaken devotion, discipline, and divine joy in all of us. Jai Gurudev.